you just had to feel like there was a better shot against Christian Javier and Jose Urquidy, which I tried to kind of relay that these guys have had better seasons. These guys have been good pitchers at certain points of their careers. These guys have been pretty good postseason performers, Javier in particular. But you got to feel good. You got to feel good facing those guys. They were bad this year. Urquidy especially was bad this year, man. And the Twins could not take advantage. I think their game plan coming in today was to try to be aggressive and get to him before it got to the bullpen. And I think that was a good game plan. But I think Urquidy and Maldonado figured out what was going on pretty quick and realized that the Twins were expanding the zone and really took advantage of that. And Urquidy, for all his faults, he's got a great changeup. He does. He really has a great changeup. But again, this guy was not successful this year. So that was, that is the stinger for me. There's no shame in losing to the Astros. I'll say that much. There's no shame in losing to the Astros. This team last season, I realize this is a little bit of a different look. I think that was one of the best teams I've seen in my lifetime last season. And there's a lot of the same guys back from that. A lot of these guys have been winning over and over and over again. So there's really no shame in losing to the Astros. Even some of their guys, why did they only win 90 games then? Altuve missed some time. Jordan missed some time. Abreu wasn't himself almost the entire season. Their rotation was a mess, especially before they acquired Verlander. So there are some reasons you can find that they didn't have a good regular season. And I think they are a more dangerous postseason team than that. But, it's not like they were the bullpen is also nasty. But, the Twins hung with them. The Twins hung with them for the most part. In this game tonight, the Twins hung with them. It was a one-run game at the end of the day. It just felt like these last – and I'm going to say the same thing I think I've seen people in the chat say, people who said on Twitter as well, like, this did feel a little bit like some of those games from like mid to late May, when I made that video that called them out as being unwatchable for a while there, where it just seemed like whatever scouting report the Twins were getting was like, did they get this right scouting report for the right pitcher? It just seemed like they were so unprepared for what was coming out, which is just strange because Javier and Urquidy are such known quantities. And then especially after like they hung tough against Verlander. I realized Verlander pitched 6 shutout innings, so it's not like the Twins got anything on him. But I felt like they strung together a pretty good at bats against them. They had a pretty good game plan, and then they got to Fromber, obviously. So it's just surprising how hapless they looked against Javier and Urquidy in particular. There are definitely a lot of bad calls. I think there's probably some, bad calls that went the Twins' way too, but it once again, it felt like a lot of the bad calls came in really unfortunate situations for the Twins. You get a bad call early in a count, you can kind of brush that off and say, hey, this is the reality of the situation. We've got human umpires. They're going to miss calls, but bad third strike calls is real tough pill to swallow, especially when it's a third out. Very difficult. Yeah, the Kepler inside strike call, that was horrible. And, took away that at bat with a base being stolen. This whole series doesn't change with an automated strike zone with robo umpires or whatever. I still think, maybe we get to a game 5 instead. Maybe. I think even that's kind of a tough argument, but it certainly was frustrating. It was frustrating to watch. Even if it didn't impact the results of games, it was very frustrating to watch. There's not really any kind of an angle that I can feel like, the Twins would have won if, if we only played a 7-game series, it really did. At the end of the day, the Astros just looked better. But you know what? Another funny thing about kind of what conversations that have been having, they were actually piss poor with runners in scoring position too. We talked about that last night. So it's like, honestly, if you want to try to I know a lot of people are going to try to take a lot of lessons out of these series, which it's at the end of the day, it's only 6 baseball games that they played over these postseason series. But man, if you want to take a lesson out of these, it's hit home runs. Hit home runs. Don't give up home runs. And again, it's kind of silly to try to take a lesson out of 6 postseason games, but if you want me to pin down what I think was the story of these games, a lot of people are trying to say, oh, the Twins couldn't hit with scoring position. It's like, yeah, but what did the Astros hit? 10 home runs in this 4-game series? I think that was the number. And they didn't hit with runners in scoring position. They just hit it over the fence. Well, put the ball in play and see what happens. I mean, yeah, look at the first inning. Edouard Julien gets a double. What happens? Put it in play. Hit a double. Great. Put it in play. Line drive right at the shortstop. Double play. Like, there's just, the pitching is so good. I think the defense is also, in terms of ground that they can cover, I think these guys are bigger, stronger, faster than they've ever been. And it's not as if the field's gotten any bigger. I realize the distance between the bases got a little shorter this year. But it's really hard. It's really, even AJ brought it up, that it's really hard to string together like 3 hits in the postseason. All these teams can pitch. These managers manage more aggressively. It's tough. If you look at the Astros lineup on paper, you look at the Twins lineup on paper, there are so many more guys who are not just scary, like terrifying on the Astros lineup than there are the Twins lineup. The Twins have done a really nice job of having like a 1 through 9, having, they have depth. The Twins have had depth. The Twins have done a great job of platooning and taking advantage of that depth. But you got Yordan. Kyle Tucker didn't even do that much in this series, and he's horrifying. Altuve is amazing. Bregman is better than his numbers this year. And Abreu, I mean, had a horrible year. Absolutely terrible. Jose Abreu. Don't want to dismiss that. But turn it on in September, and he's still that guy. He's still that guy who was amazing for the White Sox. So, the Twins, I think the lineup, if you're going to be objective about it, it looks a little bit more like a lot of complementary pieces than it does, superstar, carrying a lineup deep into a playoff run type guys. Pitching staff wise, I didn't really like Joe Ryan getting taken out. I didn't really like Joe Ryan getting taken out that early. But you can't. I think it's really hard. I wouldn't say you can't, but I would say it's really hard to take issue with how things went. I mean, things went pretty well in this game pitching wise. It was their lineup that just didn't show up. You hold Houston to 3 runs, you got to feel pretty good about that. It was more the lineup, in my opinion, that let them down. And it was hard. It was even some of the guys that didn't chase. I mean, my man Willie, it was tough watching him against Hector Neris swing through some really good pitches in the middle of the zone. Jeffers swung through some good pitches in the middle of the zone that should have been crushed. It was mostly the chases that drove me nuts, but there was guys that got good pitches to hit and they didn't hit them.